a servant's heart or orientation. So to the point you made about Matthew 25. So Jesus lays it out, man. So he puts it in the context of separating the sheep from the goats.
Oh, yeah.
He says, like, this is the line of demarcation. So that acts of service are not the seed that produce the tree. They're the fruit that identify the tree. Because remember, Jesus says, by their fruit are you going to know them.
Yeah.
So he lays this thing out. He's just like, man, listen, man, when I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you came to visit me. And he says, and so it's so funny because like those who are his, they're like, Lord, when did we do these things? Like, what are you talking about? And he says, because, and the truth is, they're not keeping count.
No.
They're not keeping records. They're not recording it. They're not trying to commend themselves to say, look at what we have done, because they have a servant's heart. And then Jesus makes it clear that what you've done to the least of these, you've done it also unto me.
Life can be fast-paced, strenuous, and flat-out overwhelming. Life transitions and taboo topics can make it hard to catch your breath. Welcome to Breathe, a podcast that enables you to slow down, get your bearings, and engage in real conversations where no topic is off limits. Breathe is presented by Breath of Life, hosted by David Person and speaker-director Pastor Debleaire Snell.
Welcome to Breathe. I'm David Person, and as always, it's good to see you on another Monday.
On a Monday,
Pastor
yes, sir.
Snell, Pastor Nugent.
Monday.
We are here, and it's February now, so we have gone through 21 days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
21 days.
21 days.
Yeah, we completed it.
That's right.
Yeah.
We completed it. Some mornings I was there with you at 6.
Yeah.
Some mornings
you had to catch the rebroadcast.
a little later. But,
if we're honest.
But it was good. A lot of vibrant, really relevant presentations.
Excellent.
And, commend the team.
Praise God. Thank you, sir.
It off.
We had a good time with it. I
listen.
think there's just like there's a really tremendous sense of revival. I mean, you see just the participation growing each and every week. You see people putting their testimonies in the chat, prayer requests in the chat. And it's amazing the sense of community that you're able to develop online. There was a time where I just didn't even see that as being possible. But there are just certain names in the chat, like you know them, you begin to know their stories and identify with them, and so I'm grateful for the experience.
Absolutely.
As somebody who has been earning a living in media professionally for at least 35 years.
Oh, man.
I want to just commend you all because what I have seen with Breath of Life and the Oakwood University Church has been a really innovative approach to ministry.
Praise God.
I never imagined that I would see this kind of media activity coming from a Seventh-day Adventist church.
Wow.
You know, and to see the high level of engagement and interactivity. You know, I mean, you talk about out here, Kirk say sometimes we got 1,000 devices on this morning. Like 1,000 people, at least 1,000 people on a weekday morning.
At 6 a.m.
For a church. That's almost like a congregation on a Sabbath.
It is.
You know, so when you really start to think about it, you're like, this is ministry at another level. So I want to commend you both.
We appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
God is breathing on that thing, man. So when we're holding on for the ride. See what he's going to do. And you're absolutely correct. I'm excited to see it. And listen, we hope that we're going to take another leap.
Take another leap. There you go.
You know, go to another level.
Well, we're going to take another leap this morning.
Yes, indeed.
For this conversation.
Yeah.
We're going to take what we're calling a service leap.
Service leap. There you go.
I like it. So, let's start with a definition. When we say service, Pastor Snell, what are we talking about?
Yeah, so I just think when we talk about, I guess when I'm talking about service, I guess it's just having a life that has an outward focus, not living in an insular way, but just living not as the center of my own orbit, but just having an awareness that there are needs and pains and deficits in my sphere of influence.
Right.
And God has assigned me to that sphere in some way, shape, or form to impact it, to level a mountain, to fill a valley, to help make a crooked place straight or a rough place smooth. And so when we talk about it, and I think for me, I think service has two tiers. One inward, we serve in our church.
That's right.
But I think the other thing that perhaps may be missing is an intentional impact in looking to serve our community or our fellow man.
Right.
Very, very well said. Very well said.
Yeah.
The definition of server can be, somebody that meets you at a restaurant and waits on your table.
Yeah.
In my previous field, a server was a high-capacity computer system.
Yeah.
But each, in their own way, served.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we talk about
see you
service,
getting jiggy with it over there, Kurt. We see you. All right. I see you.
But when we talk about being of service and taking a service leap, it's how can I be of use? Can I be useful? Am I a tool in the hand of God to meet a need, to bless someone else? There's a number of things that come to mind when you think about being of service and in service, and then definitely it is an area that the Christian should seek to take a leap in.
Sure.
And so we're excited to be able to dive into this conversation today.
And I think, one of the reasons I wanted us to address it, and I shared this in a message a few weeks back, when we talk about having a leap year, and I just really want to drive this point home almost in a way that just makes you say, Pastor, I'm tired of hearing you say this. We get it, right? It's just that we're not supposed to be possessive about our leap year.
Agreed.
We're not supposed to be selfish with a leap year. So that a leap year, again, is not just about what I get, what I receive, my vision, my dream, my goal. In many ways, it's about the number of people that I bless and help and assist and facilitate things for them along the way. And so, when you measure the success of a leap year, I don't want it to always just be in possessive terms of what's happening with me. But I think, the strength of a leap year is also seen in my impact on the lives of others that God has placed me near.
I love that.
So one thing I'm hearing already is this isn't a quid pro quo situation.
Love it.
I do this in order to get that.
Yeah. Correct. Correct.
This is selfless. This is no expectation of any gain.
No. And I think so. And this is why I wanted to really approach this, because I think one of the missing ingredients, the missing ingredient for many believers and just society as a whole,
right,
is I just think that you have to have an outlet for service, so that I am blessed in some ways. So how, like, one of the terms of actually in Scripture for the term servant is actually minister. Now,
so true.
Not everybody's a pastor, but again, we're all ministers. In fact, in other parts of the world, like, government officials are actually called ministers.
That's right.
Because they're called to serve. Like, that's the purpose. It's not to lord power or have authority. It is to serve other people. And so, we don't serve as a part of this formula to be able to get something greater from God. So again, I'm not giving so that God will bless me. I don't, bless somebody else so that then God just fills my cup even more. But I think this is the idea I hope people resonate with and get. Serving is its own blessing. I do believe that it is the key to greater fulfillment, inner contentment,
yes,
a larger sense of completion.
Yes.
I just think that there is such a rotund sense of joy when your life is littered with acts of kindness,
that's it,
compassion, just making deposits into the life of others. When we talk about, how you hear people talk about how, man, I would hear my parents, like, they were very active in service, both in church and community. And so it's funny because, like, this will be the refrain, man. How about they will be going sometimes all Sabbath and all Sunday, and they would just be, serving from start of the day to the end of the day. And it would be, in my mind, there would be kind of a conflict in the language that didn't make sense. So they'd be like, man, I'm just so tired, so worn out. But then they would be talking about how my cup is so full and how I just feel so blessed. And like in my mind, those things did not resonate or make sense. But I do think that, there are times where when you pour yourself out, there may be a physical fatigue because, you went the extra mile, you made a sacrifice, but simultaneously it's energizing you at the same time. It is reviving you at the same time. And there is just a sense, there is an overflow of the heart.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm looking for somebody to pay me back. Right. It's not because somebody's now indebted to me, but there is just something innate to the Christian experience that when I bless others, I am simultaneously blessed and revived and energized by the process.
Wow. That's a good place.
Yeah, that is a good place.
And this is the funny thing about it, because sometimes acts of service, like when you're called into them, like sometimes you can't always schedule it, right? Sometimes it appears without an RSVP.
It'll sneak up on you.
And sometimes there is kind of an initial, like, okay, I need to guard my time and I need to, protect this. And I got to, I'll be honest with you, there are times where there is a resistance
to it.
To when the initial call to serve shows up, especially unannounced, in a way that I didn't volunteer for.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you lean into it, that's where you really find a tremendous sense of blessing. And it's weird because I know this in some people's minds is not making sense because it's hard to quantify.
Right.
I can't say like, man, because I did this or visited this person in the hospital, like I can't explain. There's just a joyfulness. There's just a completion.
Yeah.
Like there's a contentment. And see, a part of that contentment is just like clarity about what matters in life.
There it is.
Like I'm just realizing like when you serve all this phony, fake stuff that we think makes people happy, you realize it just has no consequence. It's, you know what it is? It's cotton candy. That's what it is. It's cotton candy. I don't know if everybody went to the fair.
Fluff,
I mean, like the joint is beautiful. I mean, they swirling around that little thing, like until the taste is great. It's great. It's satisfying. But you realize, like, man, one, if you eat too much of it, it kind of makes you feel sick.
You'll feel terrible.
And by the time you walk 22 steps, it's gone.
Yeah, I was going to say it
disappears. And I just think that's what a life of collection looks like. The collecting of things, stuff, titles, car, and again, it's not evil, it's not bad, but I'm saying if that's the pursuit, it's cotton candy. Like, I mean, it looks good, it's sweet to the mouth, but it doesn't stick to the ribs. There's no fullness in it. I think the fullness is in figuring out ways that I can have an outward focus and be a blessing to others.
I noticed too in the Bible, I can't remember the exact chapter, but it's like either the last chapter in Matthew or one of the last chapters in Matthew, where Jesus goes through this recitation of things, right, of acts, of service, that he says he will ultimately be measuring.
Matthew 25?
The saints. Okay, it's 25. I was thinking 25, 28, I can't remember. So it's almost as though, and I know you're not saying that we have to do this to appease Jesus.
Right.
But it does seem as though Jesus is strongly urging us to engage in service to benefit others, and that it is a one metric perhaps that God uses in order to really see our spiritual growth and development.
It's a blueprint, really, for us to live a fulfilled life here. And I think that's where people miss it. It's I did it. If you're counting it up, if you're saying, man, I served this one, I served this, if you're keeping a track of it, you're kind of missing the point. You're missing the point. It's supposed to be filling you, and we used to. At a previous church, we had a heavy rhythm of service. You know what I'm talking about. And man, let me tell you, we would go out on Sabbath morning, and then at noon we would have worship experience. But between that time frame, we would do different things around. People were joining us from all over, from other churches even, and then they would go to their own church because there was just something that filled them as they seek to serve, as they got an opportunity to serve. And all we really did was provide an organizational type structure for it. So you could just come and serve. And You could come and sit and read with a child. You could come and help clean up a shelter. You could come and you could do some of these types of things. And people really felt blessed by those things. They would leave from the experience having been refilled themselves, even though the whole practice was of them pouring out.
Yeah. Right.
And so there is this exchange that happens that until you've had it, until you've experienced it, you may not actually understand it for yourself.
Yeah. And I think to your point, so, these acts of service, this is not me trying to gain merit points or brownie points with God. That is actually counter to the disposition of somebody that truly has a servant's heart or orientation. So to the point you made about Matthew 25. So Jesus lays it out, man. So he puts it in the context of separating the sheep from the goats.
Oh, yeah.
He says, like, this is the line of demarcation. So that acts of service are not the seed that produce the tree. They're the fruit that identify the tree. Because remember, Jesus says, by their fruit are you going to know them. Yeah. So he lays this thing out. He's just like, man, listen, man, when I was hungry, you fed me. Yeah. When I was thirsty, you gave me drink. When I was naked, you clothed me. When I was in prison, you came to visit me. And he says, and so it's so funny because like those who are his, they're like, Lord, when did we do these things? Like, what are you talking about? And he says, because, the truth is, they're not keeping count.
No.
They're not keeping records.
They're
not recording it. They're not trying to commend themselves to say, look at what we have done, because they have a servant's heart. And then Jesus makes it clear that what you've done to the least of these, you've done it also unto me. And see, at the end of the day, they have a heart that is so synced with the heart of God. Let me say this again. They have a heart that is so synced with the heart of God that service is not, again, this merit-based thing, but it is a reflex. It reaches a point where your heart becomes so, let me just say this, and this is how you know you're in the Word, this is how you know you're in the Spirit, this is how you know you're really walking with God, that acts of service becomes a reflex because your heart is just so full, you just can't contain it. You just can't keep it. Like, it hurts you to walk by a need and not address it. Like it stirs something in you, to walk by a deficit and not try to fulfill it in some type of way. And I just think that this is the truest measure and metric of spirituality and Christian growth. So that even when you read 1 Corinthians 13, like, it is actually one of the sharpest rebukes to the church. He's like, man, though I have the tongues of men and angels and can discern all mysteries and I understand prophecies and I have all, but I have not love.
That's it.
He says, I become as sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. So literally what he says, because look at all the stuff we tend to use as a metric in church. All right. In some faith traditions, do I speak in a tongue? In ours is, the gift of prophecy, you know what I'm saying? And for some, it's miracles and so on and so forth. He says, like, but if I have all that, I could do all that, but it is not undergirded or motivated by the principle of love. It is completely empty rhetoric. It is just religious ceremony that has no kingdom impact or consequence. And so, I just want to encourage us, even as you're listening, a big part of it is, it's not like, okay, let me just start doing so that God will recognize me. But I just think a big part of it is an evaluation of the heart. It is truly saying, man, where am I spiritually? Because I just think that one of the truest measures of Bible spirituality is so the two great commandments: love God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. That's right. And the second is likened unto it. But it actually, when you look at it, the second command is actually a response or an outgrowth of the first. Because if I truly love God in that way, the reflex is then I love my mankind like I love myself. And so I just think I don't want us to kind of approach service from an outside in way. But I just think that if we are being transformed, if in fact you are having a spiritual leap year, one of the fruits of that is going to be a life of service. That's right. But I do think it starts, somebody probably needs to have a point of conviction a point where you're just saying like, whoa, maybe my life is not as fruitful as it should be, because the only thing I'm measuring is how much do I study the Bible, and you should study the Bible,
and you should, yes.
Or how much do I pray, and we should pray. How much do I go to church, and you should. But I'm saying that those metrics in a vacuum, it's not the measuring stick. It is not what Christ is looking for.
Right.
The measuring stick is impact.
So for the person, and we've only got a few minutes left, but for the person who is trying to figure out, okay, I really haven't been practicing service.
Yeah.
Right? But I want to make that service leap.
Yeah.
Where do I start? What do you suggest?
Yeah. So I just think it starts with your gifts. Yeah. Like, look at your gifts, honestly, kind of aim you in some ways in the direction of service. So that, some have, the gift of help. Some have the gifts of encouragement, so on and so forth. So I just think your gifts can begin the process of aiming you. Some love children. Some love cooking. Some love music. Some are just hands-on people that can fix stuff and build stuff. Like, those gifts in many ways can aim you in the direction of service. The other thing I want to say to somebody too is, you don't always have to reinvent the wheel.
Agreed.
There are places or ministry opportunities, some have already planted and laid a foundation.
Yeah.
And so you can connect with agencies that are doing impactful things, and then just lend your time and your talents and your gifts into those areas, so that whether it's Habitat for Humanity, whether it's a downtown rescue mission where they feed and serve the homeless, whether there is a local Boys and Girls Club or like a Harris Home for Children here in Huntsville. Like, there are places that you don't always have to start. You don't have to create a foundation, you know what I'm saying? But like, you can go and pour your energy and your time and lend your influence into impacting, ministries that are already making a difference. And then, hopefully you are part of a church community that shares this burden and this worldview. And so where they are impacting children or young people or men or broken families or whatever it is, you can lend your gifts in those ways. Areas. And so, because I think there's somebody that's saying, man, well, I don't know how to start an agency or start a foundation. Well, you don't have to do that.
No.
And remember, because there's some who think, okay, I can only serve in church. But again, part of that shift is realizing you are the church. Like, each and every one, he is the head. Each and every one of us, we're just different parts of the body. So that when you show up in this space with the rescue mission,
church is here.
The church is there. When you show up to feed the homeless, in Tent City, that's the church at work.
That's it.
When you show up, you know what I'm saying, to minister and read to young people at the Boys and Girls Club or with Village of Promise, that's the church at work. So what we tend to do is only focus on the church collective. But at the end of the day, wherever the body of Christ is moving, that is the church at work. And so, hopefully it's not either or, but you can unite with your body collectively. But wherever you show up, that's the body of Christ.
I love that. Only thing I would add there is, because I think you've given a great blueprint, Doc, in terms of, these are some of the avenues and ways that you can really reach out to serve. Only thing I would add is God sometimes will allow you to experience something. So you may have something in your past.
Yes.
And that is an easy way for you to know this is where I can serve. So I'm working with a lady right now who was trafficked. And so her content is actually helping families who have gone through that. She's creating resources for them to build back up, but also really specific routines for women who are coming out of that life. This is her point of service. And she would do it even if there was zero money attached, because it is so base to her. It's just part of her core being. And so I know that, we've had conversations, about Gianna and you about your experience and your walk that you've gone through and that ministry that flow out of that. This is an easy way for people. So I don't want anybody to miss that part. Yes, you've laid out a huge huge blueprint, but for some of us, you may have gone through something. God is calling you to go back to that community to serve them, because nobody has the credibility you have having gone through what you've gone through. And so that is an absolute act of service as well. So just wanted to share that as well.
Absolutely. That's
Sometimes you have to tap into your misery.
There you go.
Because your misery becomes permanent if you never turn it into ministry. So you got to move your misery into ministry. And it can aim you. It can be a compass for where I can serve. And then again, we can all find creative ways, so like, we did something not long ago where just we're doing a service thing where, we just would pay for the groceries.
That's correct.
Of somebody that's in front of you in the line, or the meal of somebody in a restaurant, or to drop a roll of quarters off at the laundromat, or just wherever it is in your sphere. Like, just be observant. Be attentive. Because I do think that there are opportunities to serve that are not always grand. They're not always great, but like, they are impactful. And then I do want to just say this before I turn it over to you as we close. Jesus gave us a very stern admonition about the way we serve. Every time you do something, you ain't got to go live on Facebook.
You don't.
No, he actually says,
totally agree.
Be so discreet that the left hand doesn't even know what the right hand is doing. And so everything is not done for display. Everything is not done for credit. He says, because those who do their alms to be seen by men, that's your reward. That's it. It's the affirmation of people, likes you got on Facebook. That's it. There's no kingdom value in that. It's wiped from the kingdom register because you did it. You know what I'm saying?
For that purpose,
to be credited by men. And so I just think that the promise is this: the God who sees in secret, when He comes, He's going to reward you openly. And so I do want to just, as the church and the body of Christ. And again, I'm not saying you should never, because I do think people need to be aware. So if they want to give and they want to participate, but I just do think that you don't need to go live every time you're trying to do something that's going to help or bless somebody else.
That's good.
That's good. Man, this has been fruitful. I love the fact that you, in laying out the blueprint, you call the names of specific organizations in North Alabama that are real organizations,
real ones
that need support. I heard you mention one of my favorites is Village of Promise.
Village of Promise.
Love that organization.
Do some work with them as well.
And you were talking about trafficking, Pastor Kirk. And there's a woman I know in the Dallas area, Tanya Stafford Manning, who has done that very thing.
And turned it into her ministry.
She was trafficked. I think she was sold, if I remember the story correctly, she was sold by her mother for crack when she was like 13.
Wow.
And the man that she was sold to lived literally like blocks away from her mother.
Oh my God.
And as a result of being, and by the way, her story I think is online. I think you can Google it.
Wow.
Tanya Stafford Manning. Tanya actually, as I recall, had something like, I don't know, was it 3 or 4 abortions?
Oh, my.
And now we're talking about a child.
Child.
It gets real.
But then she also had children by this guy. And she was ultimately rescued by a woman who lived next door, who through the years, I guess, had seen enough to realize something is irregular about this situation. And so she came in one day with a gun and basically
said,
really? Wow.
You come with me.
Wow.
You know,
that has the making of a movie right there.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to just quickly point out that was tragic, and again, you triggered all this with your the woman you're working with. One of the interesting things is, and this is something, again, where we can be of service.
Yeah.
We need to pay attention to what's going on around us.
So awareness.
So she was going into the hospital to have these babies by this horrible person who was trafficking her or to whom she'd been sold. And Tanya said that she told me that nobody in the hospital ever questioned why is this teenager having children, and this much older man is in here with her.
Yeah.
You know, he brought her to the hospital. He's picking her up from the hospital. Maybe he's there right after the birth. Nobody ever asked
Nobody's
any
paying attention.
questions
a sensitivity and awareness to what's happening around you.
Yeah.
That's we talked about this one of the mornings of the 21 days of prayer. That has to be a prayer that you are asking God. God, I'm heading into my day today, and yes, I have my plans and my agenda, but there may be some opportunities for service. But there may also be some opportunities where I can just be aware. Bring awareness to my mind so that I can see certain things like what you're talking about. But in other ways, there may be some other opportunities that I'm just oblivious to. I'm walking into Best Buy and somebody's trying to lift something into the truck. You could pause but sometimes we just have tunnel vision. We're just not aware.
Why it had to be Best Buy, man? See, you got to live at Best Buy, man. Gigaparts, all these places.
It's so true. Hey, listen, I'm speaking to me. But no, man, service has to become part of the fabric of our lives.
Absolutely.
And I do think, the one thing I'll probably say, I think why this conversation is needed is just because service, I do think I guess as you begin this journey, as some kind of begins the maybe the wide turn, is that it's going to have to be intentional.
You have to. You have to.
Like, just because honestly, I don't want to say this, and I'm not calling anybody selfish, but like, we're just selfish by nature.
But by nature, yes.
I don't try that. It's just what happens when I don't have an intentional or outward focus. And focus is always intentional.
Yeah.
Powerful discussion, gentlemen.
Powerful.
I hope folks take note of it and look for ways to be of service, to make that leap, that service leap here in 2025.
Right.
And you can do it.
You can do it.
And one way to do it is to stop, pray, and breathe.
Breathe is produced by David Person for Breath of Life. Executive producer is Debleaire Snell, and sound engineer is Kirk Nugent. Audio episodes of Breathe can be found on Apple, Spotify, or Google podcast platforms. For video episodes and extra content, check out the Breath of Life YouTube channel. Breath of Life is faith-based content, resources, and programs from a contemporary urban perspective for those looking for hope and guidance. We believe that every breath we take is a testimony that God is consistent, that He loves us, and has a plan for our lives.